Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's the show where we show you what's going on around the internet and then tell you what you can do about it. And it's brought to you by your old pal Jake, who is shockingly neither a drug dealer nor a used car salesman. Although, in full disclosure, in the past, I used to sell phones. Hey, everybody. Janie, Buck, Wicked, Foxy Dragon. Good to see you. Rustbox, hello. That like button says Rustbox. Didn't last 3 seconds before I smashed it so hard. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Hell yeah. Oh my word. Yeah, it looks like we got, we have a description of some dogs. Janie Bucks is Bonnie Blue. Hello, Bonnie. And I believe we're getting a description of a certain husky. Her name is Zoe, and she is a very good girl. Zoe, if you're listening, you're a good girl. And Bonnie, so are you. Hey, everybody. Really good to see you. Wireless Mike, hello. Good to see you. Oy vey. I am, so I'll give you a quick update. It's a 2 for Tuesday. That's normally where we do 2 shows. I may not be able to do the second show later today. There will certainly be additional content coming out throughout the night. But it's the nature of this week, and hopefully not, but maybe next as well. We'll see. Regardless, delighted to have you. Got some stuff I really want to talk about. Let's jump right into it. Also, looking at the legality of a BoJack Horseman theme appearance on here. It's such a good song. The current situation in U.S. politics, and we're starting in the U.S. today, we're going to go all over the world, but the current situation in U.S. politics requires Dark Brandon, not Joe Biden. We are having a nonsense argument over the debt ceiling. We don't need to have this argument. We had an opportunity to take care of it with the last Congress, but they chose to go home instead of dealing with it. So what are we left with? We are negotiating with bad faith actors. We don't have to. There's a legal way out of this. It's the 14th Amendment. What is the legality of that? Is it really written in the books that we can use that? Here's the proposal I have to you going in. And then we're gonna look at how sure either side is about this. The proposal I have to you going in is who gives a damn. When have Republicans ever ever genuinely cared about the rules? When has the conduct of their opponent ever dictated what they are going to say about their opponent? According to Republicans, Joe Biden is a socialist. Joe Biden, a lifelong neoliberal, a guy who is more conservative than the average conservative around the world. That Joe Biden, they say he's a socialist. Who is Joe Biden trying to please by working with these clowns? Forget even that. What does he think will be accomplished? What does he think they're doing anything other than playing a political game? Have a look at what people are saying about this. Oh, this is very much not what I intended. All right, let's try out this here. Stand by. Hey, there we go. All right, this is an article from Politico. Let's have a gander. Court sets legal showdown on debt limit, 14th Amendment argument. Justice Department lawyers declined to say whether Biden has the power to defy a debt cap. So they declined to say whether or not he has that power. In other words, according to the Justice Department lawyers, maybe, maybe not. If it's maybe, just do the thing. Just do the thing. Ask for forgiveness if you must, but don't, frankly, lower yourself. A judge in Boston has ordered a hearing next week on one of the key arguments. Hold up. There we go. On one of the key arguments that President Joe Biden has the legal authority to ignore the debt limit statute and continue to pay the federal government's bills. I submit to you that not only does he have the authority, he has the obligation. And the time to sort out who's correct about that will be after it's paid. U.S. District Court Judge Richard Stearns set a May 31 hearing on a lawsuit filed by a federal workers union contending that the 14th Amendment empowers Biden and other officials to sidestep the standoff with Congress that has threatened a potential default. So what he could do, if I understand this correctly, what he could do is simply not argue this case. Say in court, you know what? They're right. They're correct. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said the so-called X date for a default could come as soon as June 1st, just one day after the scheduled arguments on the National Association of Government Employees' request for a preliminary injunction requiring Yellen to keep paying bills and salaries as usual. In other words, the harmed parties here, the people who are standing in court, are the people who wouldn't get paid because the government got caught up in, once again, GOP nonsense, Republican nonsense. They've done this before. They've deeply impacted the lives of people working for the U.S. government before. They've caused the United States to have its credit rating downgraded before. We've been through this dance. We already knew who these people were the first time they did it. And the politicians in power, which included Barack Obama, should have known better. But now there is not even the excuse of being new to these tactics. We understand who these people are. And it's ridiculous to me that Joe Biden wants to please them in any way. I don't know what he thinks he's doing politically, but it does not give the people that will consider voting for him a lot of confidence to see him struggle with the House Minority Leader over such a thing. During a brief video conference Tuesday morning, Stearns sounded skeptical of arguments from the union's lawyers that disaster for the nation is impending if he did not put the case on an even faster track. If the emergency is as dire as you think it is, I would think that it's within the power of the president to address it. using executive branch authority, said Stearns, an appointee of former President Bill Clinton. Well, gosh, I would think that too. Before setting the May 31 argument date, Stearns said he didn't see the union's request for a decision by June 1st as realistic. I understand there are time constraints given the events are developing probably even as we're meeting. That probably make a decision prior to June 1st impossible, the judge said. Stearns did not get a direct answer when he asked Justice Department lawyer Alexander Eli whether the department disagrees with the central argument in the suit. Interesting. That the 14th Amendment's assurance that the U.S. debt shall not be questioned, shall not be questioned, means the president can ignore a statute capping the national debt. And on and on and on. Let me go to the very bottom here. Nope. 2 up from the bottom. The union's lawyer also suggested DOJ is playing for time to avoid staking out a position that could have a profound effect on the ongoing talks between the White House and the Republican House leader. Okay, here's what I'm seeing. Suggested from a big fancy lawyer. Their opinion from a big fancy lawyer. An attorney for the union, yada, 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 a judge, a whole lot of people saying, I think, well, if it works this way, then it must, and then if they don't know, is the answer. This hasn't been established. Well, gosh, looks like we should establish it. So what am I advocating for here? Grabbing Joe Biden by the scruff of the neck and demanding he bring forth Dark Brandon. This nonsense has got to stop. I just had a thought about the kind of community posts I'm going to do for a while here. I'll show you the White House letter or the contact form for the White House that I'm going to fill out later. But it breaks down to this. I am going to tell Joe Biden, and I recommend you do as well, that I elected him to deal with Republican madness, not to beg them for permission to run the country. We don't have the time at this point or the energy to deal with this nonsense. We have enough. There was an attempted coup that has yet to be handled. We don't need more nonsense. If he wanted to give them an opportunity to put forward a budget that was reasonable, fine. He gave them that opportunity. The time has come and gone. They have shown they are going to continue acting like madmen. Treat them as such. Demand that Joe Biden treat them as such. Contact Joe Biden. Tell him to use the 14th Amendment. Tell him that, or I recommend saying that the country has already voted MAGA nonsense out of office early. Any form that it takes, whether it be an instigator or someone who is simply too weak, too silly, too naive to handle it properly, it will be voted out again. Now look, the guy's got my vote because the alternatives are all monsters. It's going to be real hard to make people excited for Joe Biden, which is why I hope the candidate that runs is Dark Brandon. Call him out. Get him there. I'm fired up. Let's see what y'all have to say. Ooh, mercy me. Dark Brandon. Yes, JD Buck. Yes, indeed. Big fan of that guy, I'll tell you. By the way, the 404 page on the Biden for President website is Dark Brandon. They are aware. They know he is liked. Jake will eventually get this figured out. That's right, Jake. I think Biden will just pay. God. Yeah. Yeah, if you're referring to the channel, eventually. One day. I hope she's treating the due date like she would that friend who's always late. So you start telling... Yes, so you start telling her that the events start an hour earlier than it really does, so you get there on time. Fair enough. Someone needs to high five, says Wicked Foxy Dragon. McCarthy in the face. Yes, indeed. Dino, good to see you. Joe should use the 14th Amendment, and we'll worry about the validity of it later. Make MAGA go on the record attempting to overturn it. That is exactly correct. Yes. We don't need... It's like when the hero in a movie, it's like that trope where they give the bad guy a second chance. They spare them. And then the bad guy tries to betray him and get him again. Okay, that you've established some character there. Good. Now finish the prick. But instead, the hero just keeps giving third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. Just admit you want the bad guy to win, Biden. Jesus Christ. Sorry for blaspheming. That was, swearing's fine, but I don't want to step on, on religion's toes. It's not my place. But the sentiment, I stand by. Oh, we need a palate cleanser, I think. Let me set this up here. So let's talk about some American politics that won't make you want to just swallow pills. We've had some wins. Let's have a look at what firm, decent governance looks like. And it might help if I record it, too. Alrighty. Stand by, y'all. Well, this is what good governance looks like. This is what it looks like when a representative of the people does something that benefits the people. And not a massive corporation, not a nameless foreign billionaire who's going to be the boss of 100,000 Americans, take their money and go spend it in Dubai. No, this is what it looks like when a elected representative does what they're supposed to do, and it's a beautiful thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the great state of Minnesota.
There was a lot of cheering at the state capitol today from Uber and Lyft drivers as the Senate passed a bill related to rideshare. Now, this was passed 35-32 and will now be headed to the governor's desk. But I also spoke to Uber and Lyft, and they say they plan on still trying to stop it.
Can you guess? Can you just guess who the 32 were? Republicans.
What do we need now? What we need?
The Minnesota Uber Lyft Drivers Association has been fighting for better working conditions.
They're not getting their right. They're not getting paid what they deserve.
The bill's passed and its title agreed to.
Sunday, they cleared another hurdle, passing in the Senate.
It was a long, hard year. Making this bill possible because of these drivers. They showed up every single day.
Wait a minute.
Sunday,
this is
they
good
cleared
governance.
Another hurdle, passing in the Senate.
That's what it looks like. Look how happy these guys are.
It was a long, hard year.
That could be all of us. That could be in all 50 states. Beautiful.
Making this bill possible because
It hasn't said it yet, I don't think. Let me just give you context. They have given a minimum wage to Uber drivers, so you don't accidentally waste the whole day out on the road. Can't feed your family working for this soulless corporation. It's not an insult to the corporation. It's a fact. Corporations are not people. They don't have souls. If you believe souls exist, but yeah, you don't. You're out there breaking your back. You're guaranteed a minimum pay because of the actions taken by this politician. Well done.
because of these drivers, they showed up every single day.
Good job.
It means a lot to me.
History will definitely
Hey, I know that, lady.
The bill includes
Almost said
minimum
gal.
pay rates and protections against
Also
being
would've been
fired. Republicans raised concerns about the bill.
The bill will have the most expensive rates here in Minnesota in the country.
Yeah, I'll take this one. If you cannot afford to run the service and pay the people who make it possible a living wage, then you simply cannot afford to run the service. We should put this bill literally in all 50 states. Anywhere Uber is allowed to operate. I actually don't know if it's allowed in all 50 states, but anywhere Uber is allowed to operate must have a bill like this. Hell, we should try for a federal version. We're going to see it either work or not in Wisconsin. Either Uber is going to continue on in Wisconsin, and the billionaires that own it are going to have to buy only 4 yachts instead of 6 this year. Or it doesn't work. Either way is evidence for the fact that we should have it. Because if it doesn't work, if Uber can't function, well, Minnesota Uber drivers are allowed to live their lives. That means Uber is stealing from Americans in 49 other states. They're stealing from people. The company is not worth the time of its employees. So that's the answer to this guy's question. And any complaining he's doing now is simply answered by that's the company's problem, not the human beings who have families to feed.
This bill will make rideshare too expensive for many Minnesotans.
Uber is urging the governor to
bad.
reject the bill, saying, quote, unfortunately, what we're left with is a bill rushed through in the final hours that will leave hundreds of low-income and disabled riders stranded and thousands of drivers without work. Lyft also responded, saying, quote, this bill would destroy rideshare for the majority of Minnesotans, end quote, and claims that ride fares would more than double. Lyft is also asking for the governor to veto the bill.
Take this fight to the governor and make sure he signs the bill.
Now,
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, by the way, is the person whose contact information happens to be in the description of this very video. Why don't you consider contacting him and telling him that it would behoove him not to veto this bill? Now, just to be clear, Tim Walz is a hell of a good governor. I don't think Tim Walz would veto this bill. But never, ever, ever trust a politician. Especially not an old school Democrat. Don't trust him. You can like him. You can vote for him. But don't trust him. Writing one email now can save you 100 emails in the future. Writing one email to a governor saying, don't pooch this, as just insurance to make sure he doesn't pooch it, can prevent you from having to write a dozen emails to representatives asking them to put it in place, can prevent you from having to write a bunch of emails to people in your state, if you're not in Minnesota, asking them to do something like Minnesota wanted to do, and so on and so forth. I recommend it. That said, remember, Tim Walz is one of those folks that was rescuing, I believe, trans people and offering a safe haven. My God, I'm getting my V's and B's confused. That's why I shouldn't do this stuff when I'm tired. He was offering them a safe haven. It was either that or abortion seekers or both. But regardless, Tim Walz has earned some left cred. But that said, don't trust a politician. All right, let's let this gal, let me give her a proper outro again.
Now, Governor Walz has not committed to signing this bill, although it's important to note that since becoming governor, he has not vetoed a bill. Meanwhile, supporters of another bill are waiting to find out its fate. The Keeping Nurses at the Bedside Act aims to improve nurse staffing levels and retention. Mayo is now exempt from the bill after threatening to pull billions of investments out of Minnesota if included. The Minnesota Hospital Association says, quote, "We remain extremely concerned that if this bill becomes law as written, it will jeopardize patient care and force hospitals and health systems to shutter units and reduce services." Meanwhile,
very interesting what she's talking about there, but let's keep it focused. Makes me so happy. It makes me so happy. Minnesota and Michigan have had a very fortunate couple of years. There's just been a push and pull of politics. Minnesota and Michigan got in very similar, I guess, I don't know what I'd call it, wavelengths. Just the chain of events that led to Republicans losing enough for Democrats to be able to put on a show to show the people of the state what good governance looks like, and it's had a cumulative effect. All modern Democrats need, at the state level, all modern Democrats require is a chance and motivation from you. What can you do tonight? Tonight, you can write Tim Walz. Tonight, you can tell Tim Walz, hey, look, I appreciate what you've done in the past. If you got eyes on a national stage, so far, so good, my friend. But let me tell you, the folks in your party are real proud of your state and this bill. And we'll be real disappointed. Perhaps unreconcilably disappointed might be a word. If you fail to sign it. You got one job. Write your name on a piece of paper. Do it. You can like them, but don't trust them. Let's see what the wicked community has to say, huh? You know what that's going to be? I'm going to leave that in at the end. Why not? Oh, you guys, I'm loving this. Got an active chat tonight. I have yet to see. Oh, yes. We got two from Mars Falcon here. Cheer Lud, you got minimum wage now. This is victory in fascist America. Yes, indeed. I have yet to see a corporation go to prison, yet I know they've been responsible for mass murders via pollution. Damn it. It's a really good point. That is a fantastic point. We might need to actually start looking at that a little bit more now that you bring it up. Because the people running these corporations, you're right, they don't get held legally accountable. I mean criminally accountable. Why not? There must be criminal negligence in some of the things, like, for example, I can't remember the name. What was that? Norfolk Southern. Like the Norfolk Southern crashes. I even wonder if there is legal liability in asking lobbyists to change laws that that reduce restrictions. I know on its face it sounds crazy. Legal liability, well, they changed the law. Well, not if they misinformed. Not if they told government that one thing would happen and X would be the predicted consequences, but they had information to the contrary. Mars Falcon says they get fined. Fines that are calculated into their regular cost of doing business. Exactly. Wireless Mike says corporations are people too, right? I roll. Yeah, I agree. That's nonsense. But they are run by people. And if those people lied to government officials to get laws changed, that might be something worth looking into. Interesting point, sir. And you got the old ticker ticking. I got a couple more that I want to show you. Oh boy. Let me have a look. What are we gonna do next year? Oh yes. North of the border, folks. We're going on social media. We're going to talk about Canadians. Oh, Canada. Our neighbors to the north. Around the world, people are recognizing the reality of America in 2023. By the by, we should all be, if you live in the United States, you should be as embarrassed as I am right now. We have chosen to have problems that are completely unnecessary. We've chosen to allow bigots to harass minorities. And because we collectively in the United States were unable to get that under control, now other countries are having to step in. Now other countries are having to take up the leadership role that the United States has abandoned. I don't know that we ever did it justice, but we did. There was a time. In fact, it was my entire life until recently. There was a time that the U.S. was considered the leader of the free world, at least amongst those who talked with us. No more. Now, because of the way we treat trans people, Canada is considering a petition to accept trans refugees. Let's have a look at it. This was posted on Reddit by user Hopeful Language. They're talking about a petition for trans and non-binary people to seek asylum in Canada. A woman in Canada, says the writer, has created a petition to allow trans and non-binary people to seek asylum in Canada. Let me move this over here. To seek asylum in Canada from prosecution in other countries. Guess who would be the major country there? I think they mean persecution. To any members of this sub, which is 2 X chromosomes, by the way, to any members of this sub who are located in Canada, I'm begging you, please sign this. And by the way, I'm begging you, if you're from Canada, decent chunk of the audience is, please sign the petition. I know I'm asking you to pick up the slack that my country has left. I'm asking you to clean up after my country's mess, and I'm sorry. And I'm doing everything I can to try to fix it. But in the meantime, there are people who are in danger. if you live in Canada, please sign this petition. The world is getting dangerous for non-cis people, says the author, and places that used to be relatively safe are not anymore. I'm so sorry. Our right to exist and our ability to defend ourselves in a court of law are being stripped away. Please take the time out of your day to sign the petition. Sincerely, an absolutely terrified American. Tim Walz in Minnesota could make a lot of people's lives better overnight with a signature. So could you. If you live in Canada, please sign this petition. Please accept our refugees. If we make it as a country, we'll remember this. I'll tell you this, your old pal Jake will remember it. By the way, credit where it's due. Who's the person that brought this up? Oh, shoot. Wicked audience, if you recall, do tell me who the politician is that proposed this, or that is behind this. I believe their name was Mike. Not sure. Regardless, that petition going around is a big one. And I ask you sincerely, let's see, Canada trans refugee bill. Yeah, it's petition E4268 for citizenship and immigration. It was initiated, excuse me, I was wrong. It was initiated by Caitlin Glassett from Waterloo, Ontario. Although I do believe it is being sponsored, yes, by Mike Morrice, Morrice. He's a Green Party member from Ontario. The petition right now has 15,900, excuse me, good Lord, it has 159,624 signatures. Okay, that's a very different message than I was planning on saying. It's got a hell of a lot of signatures. Nonetheless, make it overwhelming. I beg you. In 2024, we might just wrap this thing up. We might be able to do away with fascism in the United States. Possible. However, regardless, I think it is inhumane to ask people to stay in a country where at any moment a crazy with an assault rifle could try to gun them down, where at any moment a lynch mob could come for them. It's a genuine embarrassment that this country still has these problems in the 21st century, but we do. They're a very bigoted place. This is coming to a head. The culture I am a part of, the culture that most of the audience in the Wicked community is a part of, will not permit this behavior. But we're also lawful individuals, which means it's going to take time. So, while we are trying to wrap this up, while we are trying to deal with these people, if you are from Canada, I beg you to sign that petition. And tell Mike Morrice from a couple of grateful Americans, attaboy. Thank you. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Janie Buck says, I am very embarrassed. Yeah, me too, man. Me too. Dawned on Me says, where they have real gun control. Yeah. Mars Falcon said, Jake mentioned Michigan and Minnesota. Sometimes they get crossed up in my mind, too. That whole Great Lakes region. Wisconsin is a gerrymander, 60% statewide. Voter D got 33% of the states. Yeah, Wisconsin's terribly gerrymandered, and I apologize. I get stuck in the Midwest from time to time. I'm a creature of it. Michigan and Minnesota are interesting if you're from outside the area. They're interesting because they were red and getting redder, and they switched. And the reason they switched is because right around the same time, there were big pushes. There was individual efforts on the ballots themselves. In Michigan, there were literal ballot initiatives. That got a ton of left-leaning voters to the voting booth. And at the same time, both states took steps to ensure voting was fair. And when voting is fair, surprise, surprise, most people vote for sane politicians. So they've been having a renaissance since then. Wisconsin might be starting its renaissance right now, because they are, well, yes, as Mars Falcon correctly pointed out, it's gerrymandered. But with the election of Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasiewicz, baby, a case coming to the Supreme Court might just flip that. Oh, Cortez Crimson, I've been dying to bust this out. Delighted to have you, my friend. You said, is there a, let me read that. Is there a link where we can sign that petition? Yes, there is, Cortez. It is in the description. It's a link to the petition. I do believe you have to be from Canada, which a decent chunk of the audience is. So, Cortez, if you're in Canada, sign that puppy. Thank you. And that is yet another one I owe you, my friend. You're racking them up. Dino says, thank you for that very earnest apology on our behalf in America, Jake. Well, thank you very much for being part of the community that's doing something about this. My gosh. I will say this. If you want proof that the world isn't irrevocably look at these kids. They're cleaning up. Oh, and I'll tell you, it's such a positive note. I'm tempted not to do one more. You know what? Yeah, I'll do it. I got one more story I want to run for you guys. It's about Russians, but it's too good not to share. Let me get this all set. Also, it stars one of my favorite internet people of all time, so I'm predisposed towards playing it. This is Beau of the Fifth Count. Well, presuming that I actually... Hey, there we go. Well, Russia invaded Ukraine because Putin is an imperialist. He's been pretty darn frank about that, or at least transparent in the way that dictators are. Easy to read, I suppose. If you're not familiar, Putin installed a puppet government in Ukraine a couple years back. That was tossed out by the election that led to Volodymyr Zelensky being put in charge. He was made president. Putin also installed a puppet government in Belarus. If you want to know what Ukraine would look like without Zelensky, look at Belarus. The leader of Belarus literally has to hide from his own people. This matter is it's particularly sensitive to me because it shares so many parallels with the way the United States invaded Iraq. We made up something. We made up an excuse. And then we invaded. And even after our excuse was shown to be a lie, it was a straight up lie, we tried to occupy it. It's haunted me since it happened. It's haunted a hell of a lot of Americans, too. We don't have the benefit of ignorance these days, just like Joe Biden doesn't have the benefit of ignorance after seeing the treatment of Barack Obama, after seeing how Republicans negotiate. We can't pretend that what's happening is at all a matter of debate. I even saw Sam Cedar. I'm not going to play the clip, but I saw Sam Cedar being wishy-washy on how much we should support Ukraine. The answer is with everything we got. That's the only acceptable answer. Every single thing we've got. 100% support. It is not acceptable after World War II to change your country's borders by force. This is fundamental to how the world needs to work from here on out in human history. We need to kill within ourselves that instinct to clobber somebody else and take their land. It's got to end. Fortunately, it would appear there are Russians that agree with that sentiment. Here's Bo to tell us about it.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we are going to talk about what happened in Russia. And we're going to go over the importance of it, whether or not it's going to be sustained, whether or not this is the same as what Zelensky was talking about, whether or not this is Russia's next mistake. And we're just going to kind of run through everything because there are a lot of downstream effects from this that may not be apparent at first. So if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about right now, a group of non-state actors moved into Russian territory and conducted some raids. Now, last bit of information I got was that there are still some there conducting raids. Now, these people are somewhat aligned in theory with Ukraine, but they're not the Ukrainian armed forces. They are non-state actors. They're Russians, or at least have Russian passports.
That is huge. Just like the person who is the leader of Belarus right now is not really a fairly elected leader. As in, genuinely, Putin meddled with those elections. More so than he meddled with U.S. elections. I mean, they literally did the old school dictatorship faux election nonsense. He's an installed puppet of Putin in Belarus. Is it Lukashenko? I can't say the guy's name. But Lukashenko, I think. Regardless, Putin equally, he's not a legitimate leader. Now, I will say, I believe he legitimately got the votes the last time around. But bear in mind, he poisoned his competition, Navalny. Poisoned him. He threw the guy in prison for being in a different political party. You know the kind of stuff that Republicans whine about? Putin actually does. You know, the stuff that Republicans accuse Democrats of doing is in reality what Putin does. Now, just to give you context here, because Bo doesn't talk about it, now there's a bunch of Russians, and by the way, if you live in the United States, if you live in any, frankly, country in the world that relies upon democracy, you should take notes, because this is how bad things can get. Now, there's a bunch of Russians who didn't get a real choice in the elections. They have had for years any political opposition to Putin or his puppets, because the way it works with Russia is that it's either Putin or his yes man that trade off the leadership. And by the way, it's really Putin calling the shots the whole time. All of Putin's opposition has been literally attacked or killed. Just straight up killed. And now, conscripts are being pulled off the street, sent to go die in Ukraine. Even if you don't have a sense of justice, even if you're not a righteous person, I'm sure you don't want to die so Putin can plant a different patterned flag on a chunk of land. So it would appear that there are people fighting the regime in Russia. And if you want to know why the United States and Russia have been unable to get along for the last 20 years, the answer is Vladimir Putin. May he be gone soon and rot in hell soon after.
Now, I know that some people are going to want to draw a distinction and say that they're not really separate from the Ukrainian armed forces. Yeah, can't do that now. I would point you back to the initial invasion before this one, when Russia first started taking Ukrainian land, and all of those people that were not really Russian military, the contractors, the special operations, those folks. You know the rules, and so do I. You can't change them now. These are non-state actors. They have claimed responsibility for them. There's two separate groups. Now, is this going to be sustained, or is it just a diversion? Just something to get them looking somewhere else.
Either way,
and kind of trick them a little bit. We don't know. We don't know if this is a full commitment, if they are just never going to give it up, or this is something that is relatively short-lived.
Heroes, by the way.
They could be gone tomorrow, or they could never desert it. But once something like this starts, there's always the risk of it organically widening. There is a lot of discontent in Russia. A whole lot.
And now you have the context for why. A frankly unfairly elected politician is getting people killed. Over a war he just arbitrarily decided to start up. You want to know the actual reasoning? I'll tell you right here and now. It's not that hard to understand. Russia's capital is on the far western side of the country. So, it damn near touches Ukraine. So if Ukraine had joined NATO, then Russia's capital would be militarily exposed to NATO. And if you believe that we still exist in a time where countries take each other over, then that would be a problem for Russia if they wanted to go to war with us. What Russia was hoping to do was secure, Putin was hoping to do was secure both the land, which had its own resources, and trade routes, more importantly, as well as a layer of security between the capital and NATO forces. But frankly, Putin has come out and said it. We've seen Russian propaganda that actually leaked before. This is when the invasion first happened. They thought it was going to take a week. They set in RT, Russia Today, accidentally set an article to auto-publish, and it did, saying that now Putin has successfully united Russia, Little Russia, and White Russia, a.k.a. what they call Russia, Ukraine, a derogatory nickname, and White Russia, Belarus, which is its actual name. In other words, he was trying to build an empire again, a new Soviet Union. That was the legacy he wanted to leave. I'm rooting for the cancer in Putin's cancer diagnosis.
Once actions start being taken, they might be taken in other places, maybe even deeper inside Russia. Especially if, let's say, all of the Russian border services were looking in one specific direction at one time. I mean, that might be the ideal time for other teams to slip across the border unnoticed, just saying.
One person dealt with.
So, we don't know whether it's a full commitment. We don't know whether if it's just a diversion. But there will probably be more of some kind. Is this the same as what Zelensky was talking about? Does it carry the same risks? No, these are Russians. These are non-state actors. Moscow can whine and complain all they want, but these are non-state actors. Ukraine has denied involvement. The people involved have claimed it for themselves. They are Russian. This is an internal matter for Russia to sort out. So it doesn't carry the same risks, in theory. I mean, Putin has kind of lost his edge, so he may make bad decisions. He has before. But it shouldn't. Now, is this going to be militarily effective? Depends on how much discontent there really is. We know there's some.
Relevance to the United States. Russia right now is holding out, hoping that a Republican wins in 2024. And therefore, because Putin's bought the Republicans, therefore, in 2024, if a Republican wins, the military aid to Ukraine, and therefore their fighting power, and therefore their ability to resist an invasion, will dissipate significantly. Will downgrade significantly, I guess I should say. So, what's the relevance here? There is a chance we could wrap up this murder, this ongoing murder, this mass murder, earlier. If these GD heroes start a proper campaign within the borders of Russia. Again, these are Russians fighting Russians. I'm rooting for the good guys who don't invade other countries.
But whether it crosses that threshold to create organic action elsewhere, we're going to have to wait and see. There's no way of knowing that beforehand. But the movements that occurred on the Russian side in response to this shows that they're much weaker than I think most anticipated. Even people who have been very critical of Russia's performance expected them to at least have some real presence along their borders in the middle of a war. I mean, that would seem like kind of, Warfare 101.
Real quick. Indeed. I hear people on the left and the right who have fallen for Russian propaganda and try to pretend like Ukraine in some way invited this invasion or in some way deserves this invasion because the character of the Ukrainians is such that all the nonsense you hear for warmongering. If you want evidence, genuine evidence that you can look at or that you can present to others, how about this? Russia didn't. Whatever the reason. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe they simply understood the character of the Ukrainian people. Russia didn't secure its borders very strongly, even though they were at a war with Ukraine to the west of Russia, with their capital on the far west side of the country. They didn't secure their borders very strongly. And Ukraine didn't invade Russia. Russia got attacked by Russians. That tells you about the character of the Ukrainian people. Say it with me now. Slava Ukraini.
But it doesn't appear that they really did. Not anything that wasn't quickly overcome or bypassed. So, at bare minimum, I think that Russia's probably going to increase security along their borders, which means, well, every troop that's on the border isn't in Ukraine. So, while this may just seem like a PR thing, and in many ways it is, it's going to have a tangible effect.
Love it. Love it. Oh, my word. So yeah, it's not as popular to talk about countries I don't live in and that a good chunk of my audience doesn't even neighbor. But in the digital age, we are all neighbors. And we will have to finish the fight that got started when the first word was printed down, was written. It's the men and women and everything in between of reason versus people with savage souls. I couldn't honestly tell you what makes someone like Vladimir Putin tick. I couldn't tell you what makes Marjorie Taylor Greene live with herself when she gains political power by the suffering of others. Same with Donald Trump. Same with Osama bin Laden. Same with Stalin. I don't know what makes these people act the way they do. But I sure as hell know that decent people throughout time have reached across borders, have reached across cultures, and have allied with each other. Ally with the Ukrainians in this. They've been invaded on a flimsy pretext, which, by the way, has changed a number of times and is hardly even paid lip service to anymore. The war is simply something that is, and the why of it is ignored. If you would like to help Ukraine, the number one thing you can do is make sure, if you live in the United States, make sure that Republicans lose thoroughly in 2024. around the world. There's all kinds of Ukrainian aid organizations. In the VOD, I will link in the description. I recommend helping these people out. A lot of people have been bombed out of their homes. It's still mighty cold over there at night. They need blankets. They need food. They're being attacked. And in the meantime, it looks like when you compare a hammer and sickle against a sunflower, the sunflower's tougher because the hammer and sickle are cracking first. Slava Ukraini. Did you know, says Dawned on Me, that in the last year, 60 Russian oligarchs have fallen out of windows to their deaths? Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. Oh, my. Oh, good night, Dino. Dawned on Me says, ending a show with truth from Bo is a great way to end. I watch Bo to keep my sanity. Yeah, my word. He's like a warm cup of tea. It's the best. Have a good night, my friend. Oh, Dawned on Me. Did you know that? Yep, yes, indeed. Russian oligarchs have been having an awful issue with their windows. Those things are tricky, real dangerous. Dawned on Me says, I live in Ohio. I really hope that we can turn the state around and be blue. Gerrymandering and no one running against Jordan is why you get Jim Jordan. Ha! Spelled properly. With a G-Y-M. Yes, indeed. Well, tell you what. Go around town, wherever it is town is for you, and put up signs about Jim Jordan's failure as a wrestling coach. If anything else, it'll start some awkward conversations amongst people that need to have them. And it'll make you feel good. Folks, I've had a blast with you tonight, but I got a boogie. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Thank you so much for joining me. Links to everything we talked about in the description. I will see you tomorrow.